Welcome to Loud and Lifted, the Women in Leadership show where we trade fluff for practical tools. I'm your host, Betsy Ham. In this quick lift, I recap my episode with career strategist Sonja Price. In under 10 minutes, I will hit highlights of the discussion, how to reinvent without starting over, building a career roadmap you can use today, and how to lead through change with courage and presence. Key takeaway number one, authentic reinvention. Sonja talked about how early in her career, she made a couple jumps that maybe didn't seem like they went together at the time. And when you do that, it's not starting over, it's just a reinvention when you jump industries or professions. And she said the best way to go about this is to bring your full toolkit with you. And switching careers usually gives us this apprehension of, oh, I don't have that experience, or I'm not sure how that works. But if you take a step back and look at your toolkit and figure out how you can market that in this new arena, a lot of times the skills are transferable. Maybe it's just the jargon that has changed. And I certainly have seen this. So her framework in order to have that authentic reinvention is first inventory the toolkit. List your core wins, what you've achieved, and what are your strengths, and what were those business outcomes tied to that. The second part is translate the jargon. Sometimes it's the same skill, but it's just a different word or a different label. Like maybe you used to talk about products, but now it's programs. And maybe it was clients and now it's customers, or campaigns versus initiatives. Same thing, different words. And sometimes we don't always think that there's a dot connection when there is. And a great example, probably about a year ago, I had somebody from a bank reach out who wanted me to be on their board of directors. And first I thought, why would a bank want me to be on their board? I really don't have any kind of experience in anything financial. And then as I started talking to them, I understood where they were coming from. They were a brand who was growing, which was something that I had been part of, but they also have multi-locations and various locations where they're trying to have that consistency and that brand experience and make sure that they're always delivering that great product with great customer experience. So there were a ton of similarities between running a donut company and a financial institution. I just didn't see it at first. So talking through that jargon, understanding that the strategies were very similar in some capacities, but just how you got there was going to look a little different. The second key takeaway was the career roadmap. Now, I love this because this is being intentional about where you want to go and then having a plan by how you're going to get there. And Sonja talked about the fact that you just need to start first with, okay, what are some of your wins over the last few years? What were those things that you were able to contribute that when you go into an interview, you can talk about? What do you currently enjoy about your role? And what do you not love? So if the opportunity arises, whether it's in your current company or somewhere else, you know the things that you're looking for, you know what fills you, you know what you're able to add value on, and it just gives you sort of that framework to start with. The second piece she talked about is really important because that's kind of the obvious, right? You want to know where you are and where you want to go based off of what you like or what you have accomplished, but where's the market? She talked about you may have a severe passion for something, but there's not any opportunities, or you'd have to relocate to the other end of the country, and that's not something you want to do right now. So understanding where the market is, what the industry is like, maybe checking even comp ranges. There could be a job that you're super interested in, a career that you know you would love, but it just doesn't meet your expectations or your needs from a salary standpoint. So doing your homework and understanding what the reality is of that particular role. The next piece then is to figure out what you need to do in order to get that next role. And it doesn't mean always being promoted. Sometimes we get super focused on titles. I'm a manager. I want to be a director. I'm a director. I want to be VP. And sometimes it's not about growing up. It's about growing into being very specific on that skill set and becoming an expert. That's certainly another part of a career, is just becoming more deep of an expert. So understanding where you want to go and how you're going to get there, and then what you need to do. Maybe there is some professional development that you need. Maybe you need to work on your eye and your image. Maybe there is a certification that you need. Whatever it is, you need to make sure that you're aligning what your work is on that will help you get to the next position. Maybe it's raising your hand to be part of some projects that wouldn't typically fall into your current scope, But if you can get that exposure and get that understanding, it's going to help you get to that next level. So treat your career like a product launch or a product roadmap and have those quarterly themes, clear milestones, and make sure you're providing updates to yourself if you're doing the things that need to be done in order to get to that next spot. Next up, leading through change. I loved Sonja's line about the best leaders don't resist change, they learn to surf it. Leading through change is about courage and presence and authenticity. Sometimes when change is being implemented within our organization, we just have a checklist. We know we have to have this meeting, we need to tell this person, this has to happen. But you have to keep it real and be authentic with your team. Change is inevitable. No matter what organization you're at, things are going to change. And as a leader, there may be times that you're not on board with the change. However, you have to be. You have to get on board, you have to get behind it, and you have to have the empathy then with your team in order to get them to come along. People don't generally embrace change, even if it's good. We're just creatures of habit. So being able to walk through and talk through those things is going to help your team get there faster. But you have to be on board. You have to deliver the message. You have to be confident in what you're saying, and people will come along. One tool that Sonja talked about, which I thought was great, was just some breath work. And this sounds maybe a little silly at first on the surface, but it's so true. Sonja talked about doing breath work on her own if she's having a stressful day or had a bad meeting or whatever it is, just taking a minute, 2 minutes, and just breathing. There's a lot of articles and videos about how to do this, so I am certainly not going to pretend that I'm the expert, but I know even just sometimes taking a few deep breaths really kind of helps to reset everything. I thought it was interesting that she also talked about doing this with your team. Now, I was trying to visualize doing this with my team in the past, and it could go one of two ways. They could have been totally on board, or they could have looked at me like I was crazy. But I think it's worth trying, or at least trying in a small group. And if you're not comfortable with the breathing piece, it's just taking a break. Sometimes when things get intense or people aren't agreeing, we just need to call a time out, essentially. Have people go grab water, bathroom break, whatever it is. But sometimes you just need that minute and that pause to reset so you're able to talk through the change or whatever that difficult conversation is. The other piece of dealing with change was really reframing the words that are being used and not having a victim mentality, but having a visionary mentality. And what's in your control? What can you influence? And what's the next best step? Also, instead of being reactive, let's be proactive. What risk can I pre-solve this week? At the end of the day, as a leader, it's all about being authentic and creating those connections with your team. And a line that she used, which I thought was great, is this change is big and I feel it too. Here's how we're going to navigate it together. What's stable, what's evolving, and what we need to ask for help for. The last key takeaway is one that keeps coming up, so it must be important. And that was all about visibility. So this goes back to PI and the E for exposure. But she talked about those already performing at the next level are the ones who are getting promoted, and the right people know about their results. We've had this conversation, right? You can be amazing at your job and your performance, but if people don't know, or the right people don't know what you're doing, then it doesn't really matter. So our visibility checklist, it's making sure your boss knows what you're working on. It's making sure your boss's boss knows what you're working on. And also the outcomes. Sometimes, as we've talked in the past, we're afraid to promote the good work that we're doing, but you have to be able to be your own PR person and get that out there of what's going on. And there's a way to do it, and you have to find your voice and the approach that you're comfortable with, where you feel like you're not taking credit for the team or you're not being cocky, but getting that exposure to not only your boss and your team members, but people within the organization, or maybe even people outside of your organization, is all important. So reach out to anyone that you don't know to schedule a coffee date. Maybe make sure you're looking for a mentor or a sponsor. But as always, visibility comes up as one of the key things that we need to focus on, in addition to our performance as well as our image. The key takeaways here: reinvention is translation, not teardown. Roadmaps beat ruts, pair passion with market reality. Courage plus the nervous system tools equals presence under pressure. And visibility is your job, and performance needs a spotlight. If this resonated, share it with the women you're rooting for. For more on career growth for women in leadership development, subscribe to Loud and Lifted and follow us on Instagram. And if you haven't listened to Sonja's full episode yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. Keep surfing the wave and stay loud and lifted.